So next you might be wondering about the extensors, right? This is very complicated, so please don't feel bad if you're feeling a little bit lost, especially in the beginning. But we're going to go through it. But one of the questions you might be asking is, how do you know what is an extensor versus a flexor? So when you're looking at it, there is two division points, one on the medial side and one on the lateral side that really separates the flexors from the extensors. So on that lateral side, it's actually the brachioradialis. The brachioradialis separates the flexors from the extensors. On that medial side, it's actually the ulnar bone in itself. And you can actually see that ulnar bone here in this picture right up at the elbow. So that's our ulnar bone, and that separates the flexors from the extensors on that medial side. Now, when we are looking at the extensors, and it's right after the brachioradialis is very small up here in this little corner right here. The next one down, as we follow the tendons, what you're going to notice is that they're going to go in a particular order that hopefully will help you to remember them a little bit better. So when you look at it, here is one of those, right? That is one of the muscles right after that brachioradialis. We're going to follow the tendons. So as we follow the tendons down, the next tendon that we come to would be right here. Then we follow the tendon down, and the next tendon we come to is right here. And you can see that. Then we follow the arrow down until the next tendon, and we have that muscle there. Then we follow down till we get to the next tendon, which you can see here, right there. And then our last one is coming actually from underneath all of these muscles. You can see it just poking out just a little bit with that tendon right there. Now, the order that these follow in to maybe help you when trying to figure out how to memorize these would be in the order of longus, brevis, longus, brevis, longus, indices. Okay. So it's longus, brevis, longus, indices. So trying to remember that, as far as, because there's so many longuses and brevises and everything that's going on, maybe this will help guide you just a little bit more. So when we take a look at it, remember we're going longus, brevis, longus, indices. Now, let's put some names to them. So we're looking at the first one. We know it's a longus, right? Now we look and we follow, where is that muscle going to, all the way down here. And you look that it's actually landing right here at the carpal bones, right? Oh, so let's see. We've got carpal bones. We're on the thumb side. It's a longus. And we are on the extensors. So what are we looking at? Extensor carpi radialis longus. So really, when you start looking at these muscles, they really are named for exactly what is happening, right? So the next one down, we find that next arrow, that next muscle that you can see. And you can see the belly of it is right where that arrow is. And as you follow it down, oh, it's going to come in, and you can't actually see the attachment right there, but it is going to those carpal bones, right? But look at the length of the tendon. It's a shorter tendon that's coming down. So it is a brevis. And we know that also just by looking at the longus indices, right? So we've got it's on the extensor side, right? So we know that, and you can actually look at it, and if it were to contract, think it would extend that wrist, right? The carpal bones being the wrist. All right. So we're looking at the extensor carpi radialis brevis. So it's an extensor of the wrist bones on the radial side, because it's on that thumb side, and it's got a shorter tendon. So it's the extensor carpi radialis brevis. Now, when you're looking at it, what we're going to do is we're going to come and look at the next arrow down. That next arrow down coming through, the next tendon down is right here. Now, this one, it's hard to see it on the attachment, but I do know because of the location. But the attachment's going to come and land right around where this second arrow from the bottom is. Underneath that area, it's just not showing it in this particular picture as well. Oh, you can actually, it's coming down just right next to it. You can see it. It's just elongated by a little bit, but usually it's like coming down to right in this area. They did it a little bit further for their picture, but that's okay. Now, if I were to put a attachment from this region where this arrow is that we're looking at for this muscle down to this portion of the thumb, and it were to contract, what you might see is you would see that same motion of the thumb coming up and away from the palm of the hand, which is abduction. Right? So I've abducting the thumb when I am going to be using that particular muscle. So here we're looking at abductor, right? An abductor pollicis, because it's going to the thumb, right? And following along with our longus brevis longus, we are hitting longus here. So it is the abductor pollicis longus. There is also an abductor pollicis brevis. We're not studying this this lecture right now because it is a hand muscle, and we're not going to cover the hand muscles right now. All right, our next arrow down. So we can see right here, we've got the muscle with that next arrow down, and it's going to come, and this tendon is longer. It's coming out longer towards that thumb that you can see as compared to the abductor pollicis longus. So on this one, if it were to contract, instead of pulling up and out in the anterior plane, or excuse me, in that anterior motion, right? It's going to instead be going out to the side, which, remember, with our thumb, that movement is our extension. So anything that's coming down to the ends of the thumb, right, is going to be our extension, versus if it was at the base of the thumb, it would be abduction. So we are looking at it going to the thumb. We are extending the thumb, and in our line, we're looking at longus brevis, longus brevis. And you can actually see it compared to the next muscle we're going to look to, that the tendon is a little bit shorter. So here we have our extensor pollicis brevis. So next, you can see this next tendon down, right, is coming out, and it's a long tendon. It's the muscle belly is buried underneath our digitorum here, but we can see this coming out with that arrow, and it's coming all the way down to our distal interphalangeal joint. So again, it's an extension of the thumb, but it's got the longer tendon, so it's extensor pollicis longus. Now our last one is the extensor indices. You'll notice that it's going to the index finger, right? Indices is our index finger or our pointer finger. And when we're looking at it, it's the belly is buried underneath all of these muscles up here with the digitorum and the extensor digiti minimi and the extensor carpi ulnaris. It's buried underneath here and then comes over to that lateral side as it attaches onto the index finger. So now, just remembering and following the guidelines, we've got longus, brevis, longus, brevis, longus, indices. Now, hopefully that helps a little bit more as far as dealing with all the longuses and brevises. Now, these are just the ones you can see on the tendons of that lateral side. I am not including information right here on that more medial side, but you can see where we've got this, follow it, right? So this muscle comes down and it goes down to all of these digits, right? You can see that right there, all of the digits. So we've got the extensor digitorum. We've got this one right here that is coming down right next to that extensor digitorum. And you can actually see it coming down just to that pinky finger is where that tendon's heading, all the way down to that pinky finger. So it's the extensor digiti minimi. And then this last one over here, that is before where that ulna break is, right? You can see where the ulna bone is and come down, and it's still on the extensor side. We've got this heading down to the carpal bones, right? So it's the extensor carpi ulnaris. Once we go past that ulnar bone, we are now onto the flexor side. And you can even see this flexor muscle coming down to the carpal bones. And so if you had to take a guess, what do you think that particular muscle might be? Well, it would be the flexor carpi ulnaris because it's on that ulnar side. Hopefully that helps you a little bit in trying to guide you, and we're going to be able to give it a chance for you to practice your skills as we continue on.